may not be suitable for all audiences.
Just a normal, regular teacher with no hopes or dreams. Absolutely nothing. Just waiting to die.
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher, a professional artist, a master educator, attempting to provide the best in art historical content. If you like the content, you know exactly what to do. You like, you share, you subscribe, you get others on board, and all of that.
How was y'all summer?
Oh, it was good.
Rhetorical. Let's get into it.
Believe it or not, scholars, a new school year is upon us. It's hard to believe. And there are thousands of teachers just like myself getting ready for those little kiddies to come through the door for us to fill their minds with creativity and new projects and lessons and things that are going to absolutely blow them away. And when I think of art educators, I've talked about a lot of great ones, but one of them that jumps out of my mind is Max Beckmann, a German expressionist who was arguably one of the great art teachers of all time. So why don't we, as us teachers are getting ready to brush off those skills and get ready for those little kiddies to come to the door, why don't we talk a little bit about one of the master art educators, one of the master artists, Max Beckmann. Max Beckmann is a figurative painter with over 85 self-portraits under his belt, but he didn't just hatch out of the egg making art. This guy came from some unique beginnings. His father, Carl, was a grain merchant in a farming community and died when his son was only 10 years old. Against his family's wishes, at the age of 15, he chose to pursue a path of becoming a painter. He had failed the entrance exam for the Royal Academy of Fine Art, but was eventually accepted an entrance to the Weimar School of Arts in 1900. It was there that he would meet his future wife, Minna Tuba, who was also studying there, and he would continue his education abroad in Paris. His early work was very much influenced by the Impressionists as well as post-Impressionist Vincent van Gogh, Edvard Munch, and Paul Cézanne. Young Men at Sea was the first artwork of his that really caught the attention of gallery owners and really got his name buzzing in the art world. He would be married in 1906, and he wanted his wife to really focus on family, not her art. And so that's what she did. Soon they would have a son, Peter, but this was not a fairy tale ending. She really wanted to pursue a career in singing and had some opportunities to become an opera singer that would lead to their separation in 1915 and eventually their divorce in 1925.
We're not kids anymore.
Max Beckmann was active in lots of different groups. One such group that he was a strong participant in was the Berlin Secession. 65 different artists would secede with demonstrations against the standards of academic or government-endorsed arts, with other notable members including Emil Nolde, Edvard Munch, Kathy Kollwitz, and Ernest Kirchner. As time would pass, the world became very complicated. Life in Germany became very uneasy. And as we enter 1914, World War I would erupt, and Max Beckmann would find himself on the front lines. He was drafted as a corpsman, stationed in Prussia, Flanders, and Strasbourg as a medical orderly that was to go out and get troops that had been mortally wounded, bringing them back to get medical attention. And this mental trauma would result in depression, hallucinations, and a complete nervous breakdown that would result in his discharge from military service in 1917. His entire outlook on life would change during that time. He would move to a period of constructing art in a black and white setting and void of color. These were very emotional works. It was a painting style that had changed. It was a distortion of reality. And it was a big time of his own mental healing after that 1917 discharge. And eventually, he would mentally get back on track. Color would eventually return to his palette, and we see Self-Portrait with Red Scarf as that first major step in that direction. The time after World War I was very difficult in Germany. Politically and socially, the people of Germany were dealing with lots of stuff. Hunger, disease, unemployment, inflation, violence in the streets. Radical groups were rising up to try to take charge and control of what was going on. And so he would create this lithograph series called Hell that was published in 1919. These 10 prints of post-World War I life in Germany show the types of things that were being dealt with. Eventually this would be published, although the publisher sold 0 copies of it in 1919. Beckmann believed that art was serious business. It was the business of reflecting your society, showing the stories that might not easily be told in other platforms. And he would say things like, art is created for the sake of realization, not amusement, for transfiguration, not for the sake of play. But strangely enough, eventually the art of Max Beckmann would evolve from these very disturbing post-war images to ones of theater, the circus, and cabaret. Works like Carnival were very much influenced by late Gothic German paintings and the work of El Greco. The black outlines look like a stained glass painting, jagged forms and strong verticals. This complex use of very interesting symbols that he would refuse to define for the public. We see the fish, candles, ladders, all these kinds of things that he believed should be open to the public's interpretation. And soon he would become involved with the new objectivity. This was a rejection of expressionism for realism, and that was the direction his work was heading in.
You've opened my eyes to a very serious problem.
Max Beckmann was becoming a bigger and bigger deal on the art scene as he was entering his 40s. He would meet Quappy, a 20-something violinist who he would eventually marry. Not only was he creating great works of art, but he was also serving as a teacher of a master class at the Academy of Art in Frankfurt, which was a post that he held from 1925 up until 1933. And definitely during this time period, he was very much an internationally recognized artist for his skills and the things that he was producing. But it was in this time frame that we would see the National Socialist Party rising up in power and regularly attacking artists and modern art as an institution. They viewed this type of art as socially and morally corrupt. Max Beckmann and others like him were not appreciated as they were in the 1920s. And Beckmann was labeled as a cultural Bolshevik by Adolf Hitler when he was named Chancellor of Germany in 1933. Adolf Hitler had all kinds of issues with this type of art. I've spoke about it before in my video about degenerate art. I've spoke about it in my video on the Monuments Men, and here I go again talking about the same thing. But it's a fact that many artists, including Max Beckmann, were labeled degenerates by his own country, and he was one of the most attacked in Adolf Hitler's 1937 Degenerate Art Exhibition, as he would be fired from his teaching job in Frankfurt and would move to Berlin as a private citizen, kind of going underground, avoiding any sort of buzz around him. The threats got more and more intense. As a matter of fact, Adolf Hitler, in a radio speech, threatened artists who created degenerate art with imprisonment or castration. Max Beckmann felt that he had no choice but to flee the country, and he would travel to the Netherlands, settling in Amsterdam for 10 years in exile. And it's gotta be a strange feeling to go from a national treasure of your homeland to being labeled as a public menace and having to flee the country for your own safety. World War II basically confined him to the city, and he felt that he was isolated, and we see that reflected in his art. When we look at Self-Portrait with Wife, he's very much isolated. When we see works like Bird's Hell, these types of works are very politically motivated. It's a political commentary on how he viewed things going down in his homeland. And whether we look at the old works that he was making coming out of World War I, the works that he was making now in exile, these works were all created as a therapy. He viewed art as therapeutic and a necessary part of his dealing with things in life. And he was not the only artist to have to deal with this. When we look at artworks like Artists with Vegetables, we see a collection of artists that were all exiled, each one holding different items that represented their backstory, if you will. We see the fish, we see the carrot, we see the cabbage, we see Beckmann with the mirror, obviously focusing on his self-portraits. And all the while he's living life in Amsterdam, he's also trying to get out. He was trying to immigrate to the United States. However, he was a German citizen living as an immigrant in the Netherlands, and he was forbidden to travel to the United States through another country. For years he would petition, and after 2, he would get an exit visa in 1947 and eventually take a job in St. Louis, Missouri, first traveling on a temporary visa before officially being able to immigrate to the U.S. and make the United States his new home. In St. Louis, he was working as the professor at Washington University Art School in St. Louis, and he would work there until 1948, where he would move on to the Brooklyn Museum of Art School, and obviously he would continue during this time to be productive as an artist. He was very sought after for his prints and his paintings. He was very famous in New York before moving there. As a matter of fact, the Museum of Modern Art had exhibitions that included his works, and he was very well recognized at that time. Sadly, on one occasion, he was traveling to the Met for an art exhibition when he had a heart attack and died on the way to view some art. Just prior to his death, he had finished The Argonauts. This was his 9th monumental triptych. A triptych is a series of 3 panels of art that go together to tell one story. In his studio, he was working on the 10th triptych, but again, unfinished, as well as other works of art that were unfinished, but his last 3 years of life were spent in the United States.
I wonder if it was like this teaching shop during World War II.
Max Beckmann is an artist whose influence goes well beyond the borders of Germany. Over the years, I've had the great pleasure of having international students, including many from Germany, and far too few of them know the greatness of Mr. Max Beckmann. So hopefully this finds them and others that need to be exposed, if nothing else, to the greatness of Max Beckmann, the great works and the great storytelling that is Max Beckmann. He is, without question, one of the most prolific self-portrait painters of all time. You know, they say that Rembrandt painted some 100 self-portraits, including 40 paintings. Vincent van Gogh painted 43 self-portraits. Pablo Picasso created 30. And the great Frida Kahlo even painted 55 self-portraits. But that's very small in comparison to the 80-plus self-portraits painted by Max Beckmann. And volume is one thing, but quality is yet another. And the quality and the storytelling and all of those things, as mentioned by Max Beckmann, are really second to none in my book. And hopefully we have a better understanding and a better appreciation for this artist that gave up so much for the arts that he loved so dearly. Scholars, I hope you enjoy that as much as I love being able to bring it to you. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time, and you have yourself a great day.
Okay. That wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all.